My name is Daisy, and at 22 years old, I stood in the corner of my parents' estate watching my brother Ethan receive the keys to a house while I was handed an envelope of overdue bills, their idea of a graduation gift. The crowd laughed awkwardly as my mother explained that everyone contributes in their own way, never knowing she had just handed me the evidence that would unravel 20 years of lies. What happened when I discovered my name on the deed to that very house would destroy their golden boy narrative forever. The image of 100 guests watching Ethan's useless keys fail to open his front door while I held up the legal documents proving I was the owner is burned into my memory, like a brand. If you're watching this video right now, I would love to know where you're from. Drop it in the comment section below. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family relationships that take unexpected turns. The champagne flute felt wrong in my hand, too delicate for fingers that had spent the morning scrubbing grease from the diner's griddle before rushing here. I watched the bubbles rise and pop, each one a tiny celebration I couldn't quite join. Around me, the family estate buzzed with congratulations meant for someone else. "Daisy, stop lurking in the corner like some Victorian ghost," Aunt Patricia called out, her voice carrying that particular tone reserved for family disappointments. "Come congratulate your brother properly." I pushed off from the wall where I'd been holding it up for the past hour, weaving through clusters of relatives who parted just enough to let me pass, but not enough to include me. The June heat made my discount dress stick to my skin in all the wrong places, while Ethan stood in the center of it all, crisp in his graduation robes like he'd been born wearing them. "There she is," Mom said, her smile sharp as crystal. "We were just telling the Hendersons about Ethan's job offer. 6 figures to start. Can you imagine?" She turned to me with that look, the one that asked why I couldn't have been more like him. "Daisy works at that little diner downtown. What's it called again, dear?" "Rosie's," I said, keeping my voice level. I'd told her the name 100 times. Right. Well, we all start somewhere." The dismissal in her tone was practiced, perfected over years. Though some of us start higher than others. The Hendersons laughed politely, that uncomfortable titter people make when they're witnessing family cruelty but don't want to acknowledge it. Mr. Henderson muttered something about honest work, but Mom had already turned back to Ethan, her golden child gleaming in the afternoon sun. 23 years old and already making waves, Dad boomed, clapping Ethan on the shoulder hard enough that anyone else would have stumbled. But not Ethan. Never Ethan. He absorbed praise like a sponge, expanding with each compliment. "My son," the software engineer, following in his old man's footsteps, but going even further. I wanted to point out that I was 22, that I'd been taking night classes in accounting while working full-time, that I'd never asked them for a dime since I turned 18. But what was the point? The narrative had been written long before today.
Speech.
Someone called out, and Mom stepped forward, raising her glass with the practiced grace of someone who'd been waiting for this moment. "Family, friends," she began, her voice honeyed with false emotion. "Today we celebrate not just a graduation, but a legacy continued. When Richard and I started our family, we dreamed of raising children who would carry our name with pride, who would build upon what we've created." Her eyes swept the crowd, carefully avoiding mine. "In Ethan, we see that dream realized. A son who embodies everything we value: ambition, intelligence, the drive to excel." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire I wasn't invited to warm myself by. Around me, relatives nodded and smiled, their approval washing over Ethan in waves while I stood there, invisible despite being in plain sight. "Some children," Mom continued, and now her gaze found me, "contribute in their own small ways. But it takes a special kind of person to truly carry a family's legacy forward. Ethan is that person." The applause that followed felt like slaps. Each clap a reminder of what I wasn't, what I'd never be in their eyes. I kept my face neutral, a skill I'd perfected over years of family dinners where my achievements were footnotes to Ethan's headlines. "And now," Dad announced, producing a large gift-wrapped box from behind the drinks table, "for the real celebration." The crowd pressed closer, phones appearing to capture the moment. The box was pristine white with a golden bow that probably cost more than I made in tips on a good night. Dad held it out to Ethan with ceremony, like he was passing down Excalibur itself. Ethan made a show of opening it, peeling back paper with theatrical slowness. When he pulled out the keys, heavy, gleaming things attached to a leather fob, the gasp from the crowd was audible. "No way," Ethan breathed, though his surprise seemed rehearsed. "Are these keys to your new house?" Mom confirmed, beaming. "The corner property on Maple Street. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and that gorgeous Victorian architecture you've always loved." The eruption of congratulations drowned out my sharp intake of breath. That house. I knew that house. Grandma had taken me there once, years ago, talking about investments and security in that vague way adults do when they think you're too young to understand. But I'd understood more than she'd realized. "Let me get a picture," Cousin Jennifer squealed, and suddenly Ethan was posing with the keys held high, surrounded by our parents, the golden family trinity captured for posterity. No one asked where I was. No one noticed I wasn't in the frame. The photo session continued for what felt like hours. Different combinations of relatives, different angles, Ethan's smile never wavering. I found myself counting the bubbles in my untouched champagne, each pop a tiny ending to match the larger ending I felt settling in my chest. "Daisy." Mom's voice cut through my counting. "Don't think we've forgotten about you." The crowd turned, and I felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. Some watched with pity, others with curiosity, a few with barely concealed amusement. Mom held out an envelope, thin enough that light passed through it. "Every family member has their role," Dad said, his tone suggesting mine was somewhere between servant and afterthought. "We thought you should have something practical." I took the envelope with steady hands, though inside, my heart was hammering warnings. The paper felt cheap, recycled maybe, nothing like the premium weight of Ethan's gift box. I opened it slowly, aware of every eye on me. Bills. Utility bills, to be precise. Electric, water, gas, all overdue, all with late fees attached. And there, at the bottom, a sticky note in Mom's handwriting. "Time to contribute." The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone laughed, nervous, uncomfortable, but still a laugh. It spread like a virus through the crowd. Not full laughter, but that embarrassed tittering people do when they don't know how else to react. "Well," Aunt Patricia said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "At least, she can help out somehow." "That's our Daisy," Mom said, her smile so bright it could have powered the overdue electric bill. "Always practical." Ethan sauntered over, keys jangling in his hand like a lord's purse. He looked at the bills, then at me, his grin spreading like spilled wine. "Guess you're the family accountant now," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Try not to lose those bills. We know how you are with important papers." The reference stung. I'd lost a scholarship application once, years ago, and they'd never let me forget it. Never mind that I'd been 15 and overwhelmed, working part-time while trying to keep my grades up. It had become part of the family lore. Daisy the screw-up, Daisy the disappointment. "I'll manage," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Sure you will," Ethan replied, already turning back to his admirers. "Hey, everyone, let's toast to the future homeowner." The crowd cheered and raised their glasses, champagne catching the light like liquid gold. I stood there holding the bills, feeling the weight of them despite their thinness. Around me, the party continued, but I'd been effectively dismissed, relegated back to my corner, like a piece of furniture no one quite knew what to do with. I excused myself quietly, though no one was listening. The walk to my car felt endless, each step taking me further from the laughter and congratulations that would never be mine. My ancient Honda Civic sat among the luxury cars like a weed in a garden, rust spots visible even in the fading light. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, bills still clutched in my hand. The sticky note mocked me. "Time to contribute." As if I hadn't been contributing. As if the money I'd saved them by never asking for anything didn't count. As if my very existence wasn't a contribution they'd rather forget. I spread the bills across my steering wheel, examining them in the dying light. Electric bill for the main house, $3.40 overdue. Water bill showing 3 months of non-payment. Gas bill with a disconnection notice. But it was the fourth paper that made me pause. A mortgage statement, partially obscured by coffee stains, but the address was clear. 447 Maple Street. The corner property. Ethan's gift. My hands stilled. Why would they give me the mortgage statement for Ethan's new house? I looked closer, squinting at the fine print, and there was something that made my blood run cold and hot at the same time. The name on the account wasn't Ethan's. It wasn't even my parents'. It was mine. Sleep was a foreign concept that night. I sat cross-legged on my studio apartment floor, laptop heating my thighs, surrounded by the papers that had been meant to humiliate me. The mortgage statement lay in the center, like a compass pointing towards something I didn't yet understand. 447 Maple Street. The corner Victorian with the wraparound porch and the oak tree that Grandma used to say was older than the town itself. I pulled up the county assessor's website, fingers trembling slightly as I typed in the address. The page loaded slowly, my ancient laptop struggling with the government site's clunky interface. When the property details finally appeared, I had to read them 3 times before the words made sense. Owner of record, Daisy Marie Chin. Date of transfer, June 12, 2023. Transfer type, trust distribution. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. This had to be a mistake. Some clerical error that would be corrected with a phone call and an apology. But the more I dug, the clearer the picture became. The property had been transferred to me 2 years ago, just 3 months after Grandma's funeral. A memory surfaced, hazy with grief and exhaustion. Mom pushing papers in front of me, saying something about estate matters and family business. I'd been crying too hard to read properly, just signed where she pointed, trusting that even in their coldness, my parents wouldn't take advantage of my grandmother's death. But the timestamp on the transfer didn't match that memory. June 12, 2023. I'd been at work that day. I pulled up my phone's calendar, scrolling back. There it was, a double shift at Rosie's, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I couldn't have signed anything that day, unless I minimized the assessor's page and opened my email, searching for anything from that date. Nothing. But when I checked my sent folder, there it was, an email I'd never written, with attachments I'd never seen, sent from my account to a legal firm I'd never heard of. My phone buzzed, making me jump. Maya's face appeared on the screen, my one real friend who'd witnessed enough family dinners to know the truth about the Chin family dynamics. "You disappeared from the party," she said without preamble when I answered. "What did they do this time?" "They gave Ethan a house and me the bills for it," I said, then laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "Except Maya, I think the house is actually mine." Silence on the other end then. "I'm coming over."
Put on coffee.
Real coffee, not that instant garbage you pretend is acceptable. 20 minutes later, Maya sat across from me, her prosecutor's mind already categorizing and analyzing the papers I'd spread between us. She'd graduated law school last year, and while she was still doing doc review for a big firm, her instincts were sharp as her wardrobe. "This is fraud," she said after 10 minutes of examination. "They forged your electronic signature. Look." She pulled up the email on her phone, zooming in on the metadata. "This was sent from an IP address that isn't yours. Where were you working that day?" "Rosie's." "I can prove it. They have security cameras, and my time card would show." "Stop." Maya held up a hand. "Don't prove anything yet. Right now, they don't know you know. That's your advantage." She picked up the mortgage statement again. "They've been paying the mortgage using your name, building credit history." "Holy shit, Daisy. They've been using you as a financial shield." I thought about all the times they'd asked for my social security number for family documentation. All the papers I'd signed without reading, trusting in the basic decency I'd assumed existed even in their favoritism. "There's more," I said, pulling up another search result. I found 3 other properties in my name, 2 rental houses, and a commercial lot. Maya's eyes widened. "Your grandmother. She must have. She left me everything," I whispered, the realization hitting like a physical blow.
Not them.
"Not Ethan."
Me.
And they've been hiding it, using it, pretending. I remembered Grandma's last real conversation with me, when the cancer had stolen her body, but not her mind. She'd held my hand with surprising strength and said, "I see you, Daisy.
I've always seen you."
The quiet ones, we have our own power." "You need a lawyer," Maya said. "A real estate lawyer, not someone like me who's still reviewing contracts for typos." "I need more than that," I said, a plan already forming. "I need to know exactly what they've done. Every property, every transaction, every lie." We worked through the night, Maya on her laptop, me on mine, building a timeline of deceit. By dawn, we had a clear picture. My parents had systematically transferred Grandma's properties to my name to avoid estate taxes, then maintained control by forging documents and manipulating me into signing others. They'd been collecting rent, building equity, all while telling me I was worthless. "The house they gave Ethan," Maya said, rubbing her exhausted eyes. "They can't actually give it to him. They'd need your real signature to transfer the deed." That's why they made such a show of it, I realized. They were planning to pressure me into signing it over, make it seem like I was being selfish if I didn't. "Daisy." Maya's voice was gentle but firm. "You know what you have to do." I did. But knowing and doing were different things. I can't just confront them. They'll deny everything, say I'm crazy, turn the whole family against me. Then don't confront them. Maya smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile she wore when she'd found the perfect legal loophole. "Let them hang themselves." "The party, Ethan's housewarming. He's planning it for next weekend, right?" I nodded. He'd been posting about it constantly, hashtags like #younghomeowner and #blesslife, making me nauseous even before I knew the truth. Let him plan it. Let him invite everyone. Let him show off his house. Maya's smile widened. Then let reality knock on the door. "That's cruel," I said, but I was already imagining it.
"No, Maya corrected.
What they did to you is cruel. This is justice. With witnesses." I spent the next 3 days quietly gathering evidence. I contacted the real estate agent whose name appeared on the transfer documents, introducing myself as the property owner. She was confused at first. My parents had been the ones showing her around, discussing renovations. But when I provided the deed and my ID, her tone changed immediately. "Oh my goodness," she said. "I had no idea. They presented themselves as acting on your behalf. This is highly irregular." "I'm not looking to cause trouble," I lied smoothly. "I just want to ensure everything is in order for the property transfer." "Transfer?" She sounded puzzled. "There's no transfer scheduled. The deed is in your name, and without your signature, your real signature, in person, it stays that way." I thanked her and hung up, another piece sliding into place. The next call was to a locksmith. If the property was mine, I reasoned, I had every right to change the locks. I scheduled it for the morning of Ethan's party, early enough that no one would notice, but late enough that it couldn't be reversed in time. "You're really doing this," Maya said when I told her the plan. "They gave me bills," I said, looking at the envelope that had started everything. "Bills for properties they stole from me." They stood there and laughed while they handed me proof of their fraud. "Poetic justice," Maya agreed. "The best kind." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Grandma. She'd been the only one who'd ever really seen me, who'd valued my quiet steadiness over Ethan's flashy achievements. While my parents praised his every B+ like it was a Nobel Prize, she'd noticed my straight A's. While they celebrated his participation trophies, she'd quietly attended my shift supervisor promotion at Rosie's. "The loud ones get the attention," she told me once, teaching me to make her famous dumplings. "But the quiet ones get things done." I pulled out the box of her things I'd kept, the one my parents had said was just junk, when we'd cleaned out her house. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a photo of us for my 18th birthday. She'd taken me to dinner, just the two of us, while my family threw Ethan a party for making the JV basketball team. Behind the photo was an envelope I'd never noticed before, my name written in her careful script. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "My dearest Daisy, if you're reading this, then they've finally shown you who they are. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from their smallness, but I can protect your future from their greed. The properties are yours, held in trust until you are ready. Your parents will try to take them. It's their nature. But papers don't lie, even when people do. Be smarter than their cruelty. Be patient with your justice. And remember, the quiet ones get things done. All my love, Grandma. I cried then, for the first time since the party. Not from hurt or anger, but from the overwhelming realization that someone had loved me enough to protect me, even from beyond the grave. The morning of Ethan's housewarming party arrived with a kind of pristine weather that felt like mockery. I watched from my car as the locksmith worked on the front door of 447 Maple Street, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the wraparound porch. "All done," he said, handing me the new keys. "The old locks are completely replaced. No way the previous keys will work." I paid him in cash, got a receipt with a time stamp clearly visible, 7:23 a.m., and drove away before any early bird neighbors could spot me. The party wasn't until 3. I had time to prepare, to steel myself for what was coming. My phone had been buzzing all morning with family group chat messages. Photos of Ethan posing with furniture deliveries, Mom coordinating catering, Dad boasting about his son the homeowner to anyone who would listen. The invitation I'd received was buried in the thread, almost an afterthought. "Daisy, be there at 3. Dress appropriately. Don't embarrass us." I chose my outfit carefully. Not the discount dress from graduation, but a simple, elegant blazer I'd bought with my tax return. Professional, serious, the kind of thing someone who owned property might wear. The irony wasn't lost on me. Maya met me for lunch at a cafe downtown, far from any family haunts. "You're really going through with it," she said, not a question. "They sent out over 100 invitations," I replied, showing her Ethan's Instagram story. "Half the town will be there. Dad's business partners, Mom's book club, Ethan's entire fraternity. They wanted an audience for his triumph. They'll get one," Maya said grimly. "You have everything?" I patted my bag. Deed, ownership documents, the locksmith's receipt, and the real estate agent's number on speed dial. She agreed to come as a courtesy to the new owner. "You know they'll try to paint you as the villain. They've been doing that my whole life," I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. "At least this time, I'll have earned it." By 2:45, cars were already lining the street outside 447 Maple. I parked 3 blocks away and walked, taking my time, letting the anticipation build. The house looked magnificent in the afternoon sun, its Victorian details painted in colors Grandma would have loved. Balloons tied to the porch railings danced in the breeze, and through the windows, I could see people mingling with champagne glasses. They were all inside, in my house, celebrating giving my property to my brother. I waited until 3:15, when I knew the party would be in full swing, then walked up the front path. The door was propped open, people spilling onto the porch. Cousin Jennifer saw me first. "Daisy, you actually came. Your mom was betting you'd flake." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, my smile perfectly pleasant. Inside, the house was packed. Ethan held court in the living room, gesturing grandly as he described his renovation plans. Mom and Dad flanked him like proud sentries, their faces glowing with vicarious achievement. "The kitchen will be completely modern," Ethan was saying. "Smart appliances, marble countertops, the works." "Must be nice," someone said, "owning a house at 23. "Well," Dad boomed, "when you raise them right, give them the right values, this is what happens." I made my way through the crowd, invisible as always, until I reached the back of the room where I could see everything. The real estate agent, Ms. Martinez, stood near the door, having arrived just after me. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. "Attention, everyone," Mom called out, tapping her champagne glass. "We want to thank you all for celebrating this momentous occasion with us. Ethan, why don't you give everyone the grand tour?" "Absolutely," Ethan said, pulling out the keys, those shiny, useless keys. "Let's start with the master bedroom. I haven't been up there yet. Wanted to save it for today." The crowd followed him like he was leading a pilgrimage. I stayed back, watching as they climbed the stairs, their excited chatter echoing through my property. After a few minutes, I heard the first sign of confusion. "The key doesn't work." Ethan's voice drifted down, frustrated but laughing. "Must have grabbed the wrong one." He came back down, tried the back door. Then the side entrance. The crowd grew quieter with each failed attempt, whispers starting to ripple through the gathering. "Dad," Ethan said, his voice tighter now, "these are the keys you gave me, right?" "Of course," Dad replied, but uncertainty crept into his tone. "Maybe there's a problem with the locks." Actually, Ms. Martinez stepped forward, her professional smile in place. "There might be some confusion here. The locks were changed this morning." The room went silent. Every eye turned to her. "Changed?" Mom's voice pitched high. "By whom?" "We didn't authorize." "The owner authorized it," Ms. Martinez said calmly. "As is their right." "We are the owners," Dad stated, but it sounded more like a question than a declaration. "I'm afraid that's not accurate," Ms. Martinez continued. She pulled out her phone, showing the property records. "The deed is registered under Daisy Chen's name. Has been for 2 years." The silence that followed was absolute. Then, like a dam breaking, everyone turned to look at me. I stood there, calm in the eye of the storm I'd created. "That's impossible," Ethan sputtered. "This is my house. You gave it to me. At graduation. Everyone saw." "You gave him keys," I said, my voice carrying across the room with a clarity that surprised me. "But keys don't make ownership. Papers do." I pulled the deed from my bag, holding it up so everyone could see the official seal, my name clearly printed as owner. "This is ridiculous," Mom snapped, her composure cracking. "Daisy, stop this attention-seeking behavior immediately." "Attention-seeking?" I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "You handed me the mortgage statement at graduation, with all those other bills. Remember? The ones I was supposed to pay because it was time to contribute?" "You're lying," Ethan said, stepping toward me. "You're trying to steal what's mine." "Steal?" I pulled out my phone, showing the property records. "Here's the transfer date. 2 years ago. Here's the tax records, all in my name. Here's the mortgage you've been paying using my credit." I looked at my parents. "Should I show everyone the forged signatures too?" "Forged?" Someone in the crowd gasped. Dad's face went from red to purple. "You ungrateful little—" "I'd be very careful about what you say next," Ms. Martinez interrupted smoothly. "There are a lot of witnesses here." "This is fraud," Ethan shouted, pulling out his phone. "I'm calling the police."
Please do, I said.
"I have all the documentation they'll need to see, including the locksmith's receipt from this morning and the notice of trespass I filed yesterday." "Trespass?" Mom's voice cracked. "This is our son's house." "No," I said, meeting her eyes for the first time in years without flinching. "It's my house. Grandma left it to me. You just tried to steal it." The room erupted. Relatives shouting questions. Ethan on the phone with 911, Mom trying to do damage control with her friends, Dad advancing on me with rage in his eyes until Ms. Martinez stepped between us. "Mr. Chin," she said coolly, "I'd advise against any physical confrontation. Assault charges would only complicate your situation." When the police arrived 10 minutes later, the scene they found was chaos. Ethan met them at the door, gesticulating wildly, while I stood calmly with my documents organized and ready. "Officers," I said, stepping forward. "I'm the property owner. I have all the documentation here." The older officer took the papers, examining them carefully. He looked at the deed, the ID, the locksmith receipt, then at Ethan's useless keys. "Ma'am, this does appear to be your property," he said. "Sir," he turned to Ethan, "do you have any documentation showing ownership?" "My parents gave it to me," Ethan insisted. "At my graduation. Everyone saw it." "That's not legal documentation," the officer replied patiently. "Without a deed transfer, you have no claim to this property." "This is insane," Dad said. "We're her parents. We handle the family properties." "Not without her consent," the younger officer said. And if she's filed a trespass notice. I have, I confirmed, handing over the filing. I'm not pressing charges for today, as they weren't aware. But going forward, they're not welcome on my property without permission. The humiliation on my parents' faces was almost worth the years of hurt. Almost. The crowd had their phones out now, recording everything. By tomorrow, this would be all over town. You've ruined everything, Mom hissed at me. Your brother's reputation. Our family name. You ruined it yourselves, I said quietly. When you decided to steal from your own daughter. When you stood there at graduation and laughed while handing me bills for my own property. We raised you, Dad said, his voice dangerous. You deserve exactly what you gave me, I interrupted. Nothing wrapped in humiliation. The police suggested everyone leave to let things cool down. The crowd dispersed slowly, whispers and sideways glances following my family as they left what they'd thought was Ethan's house. Mom was already on her phone, no doubt trying to spin the story. Dad stormed off without a word. But Ethan lingered, standing on the sidewalk, staring at the house, my house, with something between rage and disbelief. This isn't over, he said. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. As the last car pulled away, Ms. Martinez handed me her card. You'll need a good lawyer, she said. This is going to get ugly. I know, I replied, looking at the beautiful Victorian that Grandma had made sure would be mine. But for the first time in my life, I'm ready for it. Maya appeared from where she'd been watching from across the street, a smile playing on her lips. That was beautiful, she said. Horrible and devastating, but beautiful. They gave me those bills to humiliate me, I said, still processing what had just happened. They literally handed me the evidence of their fraud and expected me to thank them for it. Pride goeth before a fall, Maya quoted. And they've got a long way to fall. I stood on the porch of my house, and watched the sun set over Maple Street. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and threats and family warfare. But tonight, for the first time in my life, I owned something that couldn't be taken away by their words or their favoritism. The quiet one had gotten something done indeed. The shouting from the front lawn could probably be heard 3 blocks away. Ethan had returned within an hour of the police leaving, this time with Dad and what looked like half his fraternity brothers. They stood at the property line like an invading army that had just discovered the fortress was impregnable. Open this door, Daisy, Ethan bellowed, rattling the gate I'd locked behind me. This is my house. I pulled out my phone and started recording through the window. Maya, who'd stayed with me, was already documenting everything on her phone from another angle. Should I call the police again? She asked. Not yet, I said, adjusting my phone to catch Dad pushing at the gate. Let them create evidence first. Ethan pulled out his useless keys and actually tried jamming them into the new lock, metal scraping against metal in futile anger. When that didn't work, he grabbed the gate with both hands and shook it hard enough that the old hinges groaned. I'm calling a locksmith, he shouted. They'll confirm I'm the owner. Good luck with that. I called through the intercom I discovered by the door. My voice echoed across the yard, tinny but clear. They'll need to see ownership documents. You know, those papers you don't have? You little bitch, Dad started, but I cut the intercom and kept recording. The timestamp would show I'd already disengaged when he continued his tirade. Every word after would be proof of harassment, not dialogue. Maya was typing rapidly on her laptop, having connected to my Wi-Fi. Your mom just started a WhatsApp blast, she said, turning the screen toward me. She's claiming you stole Ethan's inheritance through elder abuse of your grandmother. I read the message, each word dripping with calculated venom. Our daughter manipulated her sick grandmother into changing the will. We're heartbroken, but taking legal action to restore Ethan's rightful inheritance. Screenshot everything, I said, though Maya was already 3 steps ahead. Timestamps, responses, everything. My phone buzzed with messages from relatives. Some confused, some angry, some oddly supportive. Aunt Patricia had written simply, your grandmother wasn't senile. She knew exactly what she was doing. Outside, Ethan had given up on the lock and was now posing for photos with his fraternity brothers, all of them holding up his useless keys while mean-mugging at my house. The posts started appearing on Instagram within minutes, standing up to theft, and when family betrays you, with dozens of hashtags. Perfect, Maya muttered, screenshotting everything. Document your trespassing in real time, please. The real estate agent, Ms. Martinez, texted me. Getting calls from your parents' attorney. Standing firm. The deed is clear. Also, that video from the party is already circulating. Your parents might want to focus on damage control rather than doubling down. By nightfall, Ethan and his crew had left, but not before he'd thrown his keys at the front door hard enough to chip the paint. I made a note to document the damage and add it to the growing file Maya had labeled evidence of malice. The next morning brought the real offensive. I was awakened at 6 a.m. by aggressive knocking. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a cheap suit holding official-looking papers. Miss Chun, he called out. I'm serving you with legal documents. I opened the door just enough to accept the papers, making sure my security camera caught everything. The lawsuit was almost laughable in its desperation. My parents were claiming undue influence, elder abuse, fraud, and theft. Their attorney had thrown everything at the wall hoping something would stick. This is actually good, Maya said over coffee, reading through the complaint. They're claiming Grandma lacked capacity when she made the trust, but look, she pulled up her laptop. Your grandmother was still serving on the hospital board until 6 months before she died. Here are meeting minutes with her recorded votes. Hard to claim someone lacks capacity when they're making decisions about million-dollar hospital expansions. I spent the morning reaching out to Grandma's attorney, Mr. Weston, who seemed to have been expecting my call. Your grandmother predicted this, he said, his voice warm with what sounded like approval. She left very specific instructions. Can you come to my office today? There are some things you need to see. His office was in the old part of downtown, all dark wood and leather-bound books. He pulled out a thick folder with my name on it and a smaller envelope marked, to be opened only in the event of family dispute. Your grandmother was thorough, he said, sliding the envelope across to me. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. Dearest Daisy, if you're reading this, they've shown their true colors. On this drive, you'll find recordings of your parents discussing how to redirect my assets after I'm gone. I recorded them last Thanksgiving when they thought I was napping. I'm not proud of the deception, but I needed to protect you. There's also a video I made with Mr. Weston confirming my mental state and my intentions. Use these wisely. Remember, paper beats volume, but evidence beats lies. Love, Grandma. The recordings were damning. Mom's voice, clear as day. Once she passes, we'll move everything to Ethan's name. Daisy won't even know what she's signing. Dad's response. The girl's too trusting. We'll tell her it's for taxes or something. Mr. Weston watched my face as I listened. Your grandmother also left this, he said, producing another document. A cognitive evaluation from 2 months before she created the trust. Perfect scores across all measures. Why didn't she just tell me? I asked, my voice thick. She wanted you to be able to honestly say you didn't know, Mr. Weston replied. To protect you from accusations of manipulation. Everything was done through proper channels, documented, witnessed. Your parents' lawsuit doesn't have legs, but they'll try to make it painful. That afternoon, I had the security cameras installed that I'd ordered. The technician, a chatty guy named Jerome, recognized the address. Wasn't there some big party drama here yesterday? He asked, running cables. My cousin was here, sent me videos. Wild stuff. Very wild. I agreed, watching him mount cameras with clear views of every entrance. As he worked, my phone rang.
Mom.
Daisy. Her voice was ice pretending to be warmth. This has gone far enough. Come to the house. We'll work this out as a family. We're not a family, I said calmly. We're relatives. There's a difference. You ungrateful. I'm recording this call, I interrupted. For my protection. She hung up immediately. That evening, Ethan showed up again, alone this time. He stood at the gate, not shouting or rattling it, just standing there. The cameras recorded everything. I know you're watching, he said to the intercom. This is really messed up, Daisy. That house was my graduation gift. I pressed the talk button.
No, Ethan.
Keys were your graduation gift. Keys to a house that was never theirs to give. You could have just said something at the party instead of humiliating me. Like how you could have said something when they handed me bills to pay. Or any of the hundreds of times you watched them treat me like I was nothing. Silence stretched between us. They're going to destroy you, he said finally. You know that, right? They have lawyers' connections. You have nothing. I have the truth, I replied. And the deed. And recordings of them planning to defraud me. And security footage of you trespassing. Should I continue? He stared at the camera for a long moment, then walked away. But not before I caught him taking photos of the house, probably planning his next social media attack. Maya created a shared drive that night, organizing everything into folders. Social media harassment, trespass documentation, legal threats, defamation evidence. The archive grew by the hour as my family escalated their campaign. Your mom's getting creative, Maya said, showing me a Facebook post. Now she's claiming you're mentally unstable and being influenced by bad actors. That's probably aimed at me. Add it to the defamation folder, I said, then paused. Actually make a new folder. Projection. The next morning brought a new development. An email from the bank where the mortgage was held, flagging suspicious activity on the account. Someone had tried to access it using my social security number, but from an IP address associated with my parent home. I called the bank immediately, spent 2 hours on hold, but finally reached their fraud department. We're seeing multiple attempts to reset your password, the representative said. We've frozen the account for your protection. You'll need to come in person with identification to restore access. Can you document these attempts? I asked. With timestamps and IP addresses? We'll provide a full report for your records. Another piece of evidence. Another folder in the archive. That afternoon, Mr. Weston called with news. Your parents' attorney wants to meet. Discuss a settlement. What could they possibly offer to settle? I asked. They have nothing I want. They want to buy your silence, he said. Drop the properties issue in exchange for them dropping the lawsuit and stopping the public attacks. So, they want me to give them my house and pretend this never happened? Essentially, yes. Tell them no. Actually, tell them absolutely not. Actually, don't tell them anything. Let them wonder. He chuckled. Your grandmother would be proud. She had the same instinct for when to stay silent. That evening, I stood in my house, and looked around at the rooms Grandma had wanted me to have. Not because I was the favorite or the smartest or the most successful,
but because she saw me.
The quiet one who kept her promises, who showed up for work even when sick, who never asked for more than she deserved. My phone buzzed with another family group chat message. This time from Ethan. Day 2 of being locked out of MY house by a thief. I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot, added it to the folder, and went to make dinner in my kitchen in my house, surrounded by the quiet that had always been my power. The meeting with Mr. Weston and the estate lawyer he'd recommended, Patricia Kim, felt like preparing for war. Patricia was everything my parents wouldn't expect, young, sharp, and utterly unimpressed by their bluster. First things first, she said, spreading documents across her conference table. This trust your grandmother created is ironclad. She used what's called a spendthrift trust, which means your parents couldn't touch it even if they wanted to. It was specifically designed to protect assets from family members with questionable intentions. She knew, I said quietly. She knew what they'd try to do. Your grandmother was a smart woman, Patricia confirmed. She also left detailed instructions about when and how to reveal the trust's existence. You were never supposed to find out this way, through their attempted fraud. They forced your hand. We spent 3 hours reviewing everything, the forged signatures, the identity theft, the mortgage fraud. Patricia's expression grew darker with each revelation. This isn't just a civil matter, she said finally. This is criminal. Have you spoken to the police? Not yet. I wanted legal counsel first. Smart. We'll file a civil suit first, get an injunction preventing them from any further harassment or attempts to access the properties. Then we'll let the DA's office know about the criminal elements. Identity theft is a federal crime. The next day, I went to the bank with Grandma's original card and Mr. Weston's introduction. The manager, Mr. Chen, no relation, thankfully, pulled up years of records on his screen. "This is extensive," he said, scrolling through transaction after transaction. "Multiple accounts opened in your name, loans taken out, utilities connected, all showing IP addresses from a single location." "My parents' house," I confirmed. He printed everything, over 200 pages of evidence. "We'll reverse all the fraudulent marks on your credit," he promised. "And we're filing a suspicious activity report with the authorities." This level of identity theft, I've rarely seen it within families. "Families don't do this," I said. "Criminals who happen to be related do." That afternoon, Patricia filed our lawsuit. By evening, it had been served. The explosion was immediate. My phone rang so many times I had to turn it off. The family group chat became a war zone of accusations and threats. Maya screenshotted everything before I was inevitably removed from the group. "Your dad just posted that you're mentally ill and being manipulated by lawyers," she reported. "Your mom's claiming elder abuse again. This is new. Ethan's claiming you forged the deed." "How would I forge a deed that was filed when I was at work?" I asked, almost amused. "Logic isn't their strong suit right now." The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks out. Patricia warned me it would be brutal. "They'll throw everything at you. Every mistake you've ever made. Every vulnerability. Are you ready for that?" "They've been doing that my whole life," I replied. "At least now there'll be a court reporter documenting it." The smear campaign intensified. Mom went on local Facebook groups claiming I was a troubled child who'd always been jealous of Ethan. Dad reached out to my employer at Rosie's, suggesting I might be stealing from them since I was clearly disturbed. Ethan posted old photos of family gatherings, circling me in the background with captions like, "Always lurking, always plotting." But for every attack, support came from unexpected places. Aunt Patricia publicly commented on Mom's posts. It was at that Christmas. Daisy was serving everyone dinner while Ethan played video games. "Stop rewriting history." My old high school teacher, Mrs. Morrison, wrote, "Daisy was one of my most responsible students. This character assassination is shameful." Even some of Ethan's fraternity brothers started questioning things. One messaged me privately, "The videos from the party don't match what Ethan's saying. You had actual papers. He just had keys." The day before the hearing, Patricia called with news. "The bank found more. Your parents took out a business loan using your social security number. $50,000 for your dad's company." $50,000? I sank into a chair. "I make $30,000 a year." "Maid," Patricia corrected. "The records show you as a silent partner in his business. On paper, you've been drawing income you've never seen." "That's tax fraud," I whispered. "Add it to the list." The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. Professional but not expensive, respectful but not weak. Maya drove me to the courthouse, where a small crowd had already gathered. Apparently, the videos from the housewarming had gone viral in our town. Everyone wanted to see what happened next. My family arrived in a show of force. Mom, Dad, Ethan, and their lawyer, an older man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. They walked past me without acknowledgement, though Ethan made sure to bump my shoulder. "Assault," Maya whispered, pointing to the courthouse security camera that had caught it. Adding to the folder. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more mundane. Judge Martinez, no relation to the real estate agent, reviewed the files with an expression that grew increasingly stern. "Let me understand this," she said, looking at my parents' lawyer. "Your clients claim Ms. Chen stole property from them, but the property was never in their names?" "They were managing it on behalf of the family," the lawyer said weakly. "Without documentation? Without power of attorney? Without the actual owner's knowledge?" The judge's voice could have frozen water. "And these loans taken out in Ms. Chen's name, I suppose those were for her benefit too?" Ethan couldn't contain himself. "She's lying. That house was my graduation gift." Everyone saw. "Mr. Chen," the judge said sharply, "you're not a party to this lawsuit. One more outburst, and you'll be removed." Patricia presented our evidence methodically. The deed, The trust documents, the cognitive evaluation, the bank records showing fraud. Then she played the recording of my parents planning to steal my inheritance. Mom's face went white. Dad's turned purple. Their lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Your Honor, Patricia continued, we're asking for immediate injunctive relief. The defendants must cease all contact with my client, stop the harassment campaign, and return any funds fraudulently obtained. What about the house? My parents' lawyer asked desperately. Surely the family can work out. The house belongs to Ms. Chen, the judge interrupted. The deed is clear. The trust is valid. What I'm seeing here is a systematic attempt to defraud a young woman of her lawful inheritance. She looked at my parents. You should be grateful this is a civil hearing. Criminal charges may well follow. This is outrageous. Dad exploded. She's our daughter. We have rights. You have the right to remain silent, the judge said coldly. I suggest you use it. She turned back to Patricia. Injunction granted. Full restraining order. The defendants are barred from the property and from contacting Ms. Chen except through counsel. They have 30 days to provide full accounting of all funds taken in her name. Your Honor, Patricia added, there's also the matter of the defamation campaign. Ah yes, the judge reviewed the screenshots. I'm ordering the defendants to post public retractions of all false statements within 48 hours. Same platforms, same visibility. Any violation will result in contempt charges. As we left the courthouse, Ethan was ranting to anyone who would listen. This is theft. She's stealing my future. A reporter who'd been covering the story approached him. Mr. Chin, the deed shows the property was never yours. How is it theft? Ethan's face contorted. She manipulated our sick grandmother. The cognitive evaluation shows your grandmother was fully competent, the reporter countered. Do you have any evidence of manipulation? You don't understand. It was promised to me. By whom? The reporter pressed. The property was never your parents' to promise. Ethan stormed off, but the damage was done. The interview aired that night, and the public opinion that had been mixed shifted decisively. The golden boy throwing a tantrum because he couldn't steal his sister's house wasn't a good look. That evening, I sat in my house, reading the retractions my parents had been forced to post. They were bitter, grudging things, but they were there. The comments sections were brutal. Their carefully crafted reputation was crumbling in real time.
My phone rang.
An unknown number, but I recognized Ethan's voice immediately. I'm recording this call, I said before he could speak. And you're violating the restraining order. He hung up immediately. I saved the recording and sent it to Patricia. Another violation to add to the pile. 6 weeks later, the final judgment arrived. It was everything Patricia had promised and more. Full ownership confirmed, damages awarded for the identity theft, and a permanent restraining order that would follow my family like a shadow. The criminal investigation had also begun. The DA's office, after reviewing the evidence, had filed charges for identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. My parents' attorney had negotiated a plea deal, probation and restitution rather than jail time, but the federal charges for tax fraud were still pending. They'll be paying you back for years, Patricia explained. Every fraudulent loan, every stolen utility payment, plus interest and damages. I don't want their money, I said. It's not their money. It's yours. They stole it, and now they're returning it. With interest. The public fallout had been swift and merciless. Dad's business partners distanced themselves. Mom was asked to leave her book club. Ethan's job offer was rescinded after the company saw the viral videos and news coverage. He'd become a meme, graduation gift Gary, the entitled kid who thought keys meant ownership. I changed my phone number, keeping only a few contacts. The family that had sided with my parents found themselves blocked and forgotten. But some surprising relationships emerged from the ashes. Aunt Patricia became a regular visitor, bringing stories about Grandma I'd never heard. She saw this coming 20 years ago, she told me over tea. When you were just a baby and Ethan was 3, throwing tantrums if anyone else got attention. She said, that boy will grow up thinking the world owes him everything, and that girl will grow up knowing she owes the world nothing. The house transformed under my care. The rooms my parents had planned to give Ethan became something else entirely. The master bedroom was renovated into a study, walls lined with books, Grandma's letter framed above the desk. The spare bedroom became a consultation space where I worked with Patricia's law firm, helping other victims of family financial abuse. "You're not charging enough," Patricia said, reviewing my consulting rates. "I'm not doing it for the money," I replied. "I'm doing it so no one else goes through what I did alone." 3 months after the judgment, I received an unexpected visitor. The property manager I'd hired called to say someone named Ethan was requesting a meeting, claiming it was about restitution. I met him at the manager's office, Patricia by my side, recording everything. Ethan looked different. Deflated. The golden boy swagger was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before, humility. Or, at least its costume. "I need to sell some things to pay the restitution," he said without preamble. "Mom and Dad are broke from the legal fees. I have some stuff from college, my car, but it's not enough." And Patricia prompted when he fell silent. "And I need a job," he admitted, the words clearly painful. "The tech world is small. Everyone knows about this. No one will hire me." "That's not Daisy's problem," Patricia said coolly. "I know," Ethan said quickly. "I'm not asking her for anything. I wanted to say." He struggled, then finally managed, "I'm sorry." I studied him for a long moment. "For what, exactly?" "For..." He paused, and I could see him wrestling with the truth. "For thinking I deserved everything, and you deserved nothing. For laughing when they gave you those bills. For the posts, the lies, the attempts to break into your house." "That's a start," I said. "But sorry doesn't erase 23 years of cruelty." "I know," he said quietly. "I'm in therapy now. Court-ordered, but it's helping. I'm starting to understand how fucked up our family was. How fucked up I was." I pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. "Rosie's Diner is hiring. The owner knows your story, but is willing to give you a chance if I vouch for you. You'll bus tables, wash dishes, work the shifts no one wants. Minimum wage petites." His face cycled through emotions, humiliation, anger, then resignation. "You want me to work at a diner?" "I want you to work," I corrected. "To understand what it means to earn something instead of being given it. To be grateful for a paycheck you worked for instead of entitled to money you didn't." He took the card with trembling fingers. "They'll really hire me? If you show up on time, work hard, and keep your mouth shut about deserving better?" "Yes." He left without another word, but 2 weeks later, Rosie called to say he'd started his training. "He's terrible," she laughed. "Soft hands, no stamina, doesn't know how to talk to regular people. But he shows up." "That's all I ask," I told her. The transformation of my life was gradual but profound. The house on Maple Street became known as a sanctuary for those dealing with family financial abuse. I partnered with Patricia's firm to create the Grand's Key Fund, named after the locket Aunt Patricia had given me. We helped young people establish financial independence from abusive families, paying for credit monitoring, legal consultations, and emergency housing. The first recipient was a young woman whose parents had taken out student loans in her name and spent them. She cried when we handed her the check for a security deposit on her own apartment. "Paper beats noise," I told her, sharing Grandma's wisdom. "Always get everything in writing." A year after the judgment, I hosted a dinner party. Not a grand affair like my parents would have thrown, but a quiet gathering of chosen family. Maya, Patricia, Aunt Patricia, Mr. Weston, Rosie, and a few others who'd stood by me when blood relatives hadn't. We ate in the dining room where Ethan was supposed to have hosted his housewarming. The conversation was warm, genuine, lacking the sharp edges of family gatherings past. No one was performing. No one was keeping score. "A toast," Maya proposed, raising her glass. "To Daisy, who proved that the quiet ones really do get things done." "To Grandma," I countered, "who saw the future and planned accordingly." "To Justice," Patricia added. Served cold and with extensive documentation. We laughed, we ate, We existed in a space free from the poison of conditional love and financial manipulation. Later that night, alone in my study, I opened the drawer where I kept Grandma's letter. Beside it now sat other things: the locksmith's receipt from that fateful morning, the deed to the house, the business cards from the fund recipients who'd gone on to success. I pulled out a new piece of paper and began to write. Dear Grandma, they learned whose name was on the deed. More importantly, I learned whose name I carry with pride, not theirs, but yours. The quiet one who got things done. The house is full of life now. Not parties or performances, but real life. People healing, learning, growing. Your investment in me has become an investment in others. Mom and Dad are strangers now. Ethan is trying. Maybe one day he'll be more than that, but maybe not. I've learned that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choosing to see someone's worth when the world doesn't.
You saw mine.
You protected it. And now I help others protect theirs. Paper beat noise, just like you said it would. All my love, Daisy. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with the others. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges, new people to help, new boundaries to maintain. But tonight, in my house, truly my house, I was exactly where I belonged. The graduation gift they'd meant as an insult had become my greatest triumph. They'd handed me bills, expecting gratitude for scraps. Instead, those bills had been the key to discovering what was already mine. What had always been mine, waiting quietly in Grandma's patient hands for the right moment to be revealed. The quiet one had gotten everything done. Have you ever wondered if the family members who dismiss you the most are actually the ones most threatened by your potential? If this story of quiet triumph resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about underdogs who discover their power was there all along.